All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our preview of the big tournament. That's what we're going to call our show that you're going to be seeing all week long on NBC4i.com. It's a preview show using all of our sister stations across the country under our parent company called Nexstar. We have 1,000 stations, it seems, and we got people all over the country who are reporting on this tournament. So we're going to utilize that. We're going to report from all over the country, 8 different sites playing in the first and second rounds. That'll be at noon tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every day at noon of the first round of the tournament here on NBC4i.com. You can check out that show. That'll be a way to get you ready for that day. What I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to go through what I think is going to happen in the NCAA tournament. So if you have your bracket and you have not filled it out, if you're going to be in the office pool, whatever you're going to do, I encourage gambling, whatever, you do your thing. You can get your bracket out right now, and hey, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. I'm good with whatever, but I just thought I'd tell you what we're going to do in it. So I have this incredible touch screen here that has the entire 64-team bracket. Matter of fact, a couple of the play-in games still to be happening this evening. We're going to start with the East Regional here, and the team that I think is going to win the national championship. Hint, hint. The Duke Blue Devils. They are so strong this year with one of the great freshman classes we've ever seen. You could take them right on down the line. I love what Duke brings with Zion Williamson back healthy. I like VCU in the 8th spot. VCU and UCF are playing in the first round for the right to play Duke. VCU came on strong this season, a team that has been through the NCAA tournament rigors. It's been a few years, but it's a team that understands the spotlight of March. A lot of people have a trendy pick here with Liberty and Mississippi State. A lot of people think the Flames can get this done. I don't. I think the Bulldogs will march on. Virginia Tech, St. Louis in the bottom of that region. I think St. Louis has a great chance for the upset coming off their win in their conference tournament championship. But I think the Hokies move on, and I actually think the Hokies move on here to play Duke, so a little all-ACC action there. In the bottom part of the bracket, I like Maryland out of the Big Ten. Their guard play is excellent. LSU, despite all the chaos happening there right now with their head coach suspended. Minnesota, given the Big Ten, I think an upset here a little bit over Louisville. I think they'll move on. And, of course, Michigan State at the bottom of the bracket over Bradley. I think MSU is moving on as well. I think out of this LSU-Maryland game, because of the issues that LSU's having, my concern is how focused they'll be, how prepared they'll be. I like Maryland. So you're going to have a nice Big Ten representation there. I should say. We're going to put Michigan State right here. Eventually it's going to go in there. Well, eventually it is. There we go. There we go. And we're going to put Duke right up here to the Elite 8. And for a spot in the Final Four, I think the Blue Devils are marching on to the Final Four. They've got a great basketball team. I highly expect that is a team you can feel pretty good about winning the national championship. Let's go down here to the West Regional. And in the West, you've got Gonzaga, a team that, 30-3 this season, tremendous year, but they lost in their conference tournament. That makes them, I think, a dangerous team. I think they're going to come out very hungry. Syracuse is dangerous to me. Great length on that team, tremendous talent. They obviously won at Ohio State earlier this year. Marquette-Murray State is one of my bigger upsets. Murray State has NBA talent on that team, a team that they're prepared to play at this level. I think they'll give Marquette a lot of problems. I think Florida State advances out of the ACC coming off their appearance in the conference title game there. In the bottom part of that bracket, Buffalo is a 6 seed. Yes, the Bulls, the MAC champions. Buffalo is a 6 seed, and they should be. Buffalo is an excellent team, and they won an NCAA tournament game last year. In the next matchup, Texas Tech and Northern Kentucky. John Brannon, the head coach at Northern Kentucky, has done a remarkable job there. I think they're going to do a little upset action over Texas Tech. Texas Tech, by the way, tied for the divisional or the conference championship in the Big 12 this year. They had a great season. I think Northern Kentucky pulls a little bit of an upset, and you got a crazy game there in KU and Buffalo for a spot in the Sweet 16. I like that matchup. Nevada is a great team. You remember a year ago had a great run in the NCAA tournament, but they had some bumpy spots later in the season. I'll be curious how they rebound playing against a good Florida team. And then I've got Michigan, who I think is a really, really strong team and a great chance to get to the Final Four. Out of this bracket, I'm going to go with Gonzaga getting to the Sweet 16. And out of this Murray State-Florida State game, I do like Florida State. I think they've played well in the ACC. They've played really good competition all year. They're ready for that. In this crazy Buffalo, Northern Kentucky game, I've got the Bulls marching on to the Sweet 16. Great way for the MAC, and then Michigan joining them there. I think Michigan moves on from there, and then I think Gonzaga will get there. So you've got a 1 versus 2. I think the Wolverines get back to the Final Four. I think they're a really solid team. Great coaching from John Beilein. I'm going to come over to this side of the bracket now because they're the South Regional. We're going to pull up here, and this is a really interesting region. Virginia, #1 seed, the only #1 seed to ever lose in a 1 versus 16 game. It happened just last year. UMBC beat them. It will not happen this year. The Cavaliers are moving on. 8-9 game Oklahoma and Ole Miss. I think the Sooners advance there. 5-12 Wisconsin and Oregon. Badgers will move on, I believe. Pac-12 was really lucky to get more than one team in the tournament this year. K-State had a great season in the Big 12. I think they'll move on. However, a lot of people have picked UC Irvine as a sleeper pick, as an upset pick, a 13 over a 4. Reason being, UC Irvine's like 33-5 this year. They've had, or 30-5 this year. They've had a phenomenal year record-wise, but I still think K-State moves on. Villanova, all their tournament experience, I like them to advance over St. Mary's. Purdue, it is what it is. I mean, Purdue is, they're either all in or all out, it seems, this season. I think they'll be all in over Old Dominion, the Conference USA champ. In the 7-10 game, this is in Columbus, by the way, Cincinnati versus Iowa. Very tough game for the Hawkeyes. They have been struggling mightily down the stretch, and Cincinnati's angry. They were a 7 seed in this tournament, felt like they should have been seeded higher. So I think they're going to move on. And Tennessee, if you have not seen Tennessee play this year, you got to love the way Rick Barnes has them developed. It's an angry team, a physical team. They get after you. I love the way they play. Hint, hint. All right, Virginia moves on here to the Sweet 16. I've got Wisconsin over Kansas State. I've got Purdue marching on to represent the Big Ten. Tennessee coming out of the bottom of the bracket. So not necessarily chalk, but pretty close. I've got Tennessee moving here to the Elite Eight over Purdue. I think they have an excellent team. I think Virginia is going to make up for last year. I think they're going to get to the Elite Eight, but I think that's where their run's going to end. I've got Tennessee going to the Final Four as champions of the South Regional. So not exactly chalk, but fairly close. I like those teams. Those are really, really good brackets right there. Midwest, final stop here. Again, several of these games are going to be in Columbus, so if you're going to the games in Columbus, you're going to see these teams play in person. Starting with North Carolina, the 1 seed in the Midwest, I think this is a team that is capable of going to the Final Four. They've obviously played great competition. They played Duke 3 times, so they've played the best. They're prepared for it. Washington, out of the Pac-12, I think they'll move on past Oregon State, or pardon me, Utah State. Auburn, if you saw them play in the SEC championship, they looked unbelievable. They had an incredible game. They smoked Tennessee. I've got them moving on. You would imagine they could harness that momentum. Kansas is the 4 seed. That's the lowest they've been seeded in a while. Kansas has now been to the tournament 30 straight years. 30. 1989, the last time Jayhawks didn't play in the tournament. I like the tournament experience, but it's a team that really struggles to shoot the ball this year. So I'm curious how much further they can go than the first round. All right, here we go. Buckeyes and Iowa State in the first round. This is the late game in Tulsa Friday night. I'm curious how Ohio State will handle that. Iowa State has won the Big 12 tournament 4 times in the past 6 years, but they have not really harnessed that into NCAA tournament success. I think Ohio State showed its prowess with Caleb Wesson back in the lineup after that 3-game suspension. I think Caleb lifts the Buckeyes. I also know that Iowa State has some trouble against bigs, and Caleb Wesson's one of the better bigs in this tournament. So I'm going to give Ohio State the advantage there and get to the next round. Houston has had a phenomenal year with Kelvin Sampson there. They're going to move on. Out of the bottom part of the bracket here, Wofford and Seton Hall. Yes, Wofford's the 7 seed. They've had a tremendous year. The Terriers are going to move on. Kentucky, of course, I think they've got a great chance to go back to the Final Four. So back up here to the top, Carolina and Washington. I like the Tar Heels to move on again. That'll be a Columbus game. Kansas, I've got advancing past Auburn. I think they'll harness some magic, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 50-50 pick in my view. I think Auburn has a great chance that they can harness what they found at the SEC championship. I think they'll move on. In this game, I think it's where Houston has so much offensive firepower. I think they're going to be a problem for Ohio State matchup-wise. So I've got Houston, the Cougars advancing, And then I've got Kentucky moving on, and I've got them moving on again here all the way to the Elite Eight. Carolina and Kansas, boy, if there's blue blood basketball, that is it right there. Carolina's the better team this year. I've got Carolina moving on. And now, who do you go with? Carolina, Kentucky, two incredible powerhouse programs. I love Kentucky's freshman class because they have great freshman classes every year. They have matured this year. Remember at the start of the year, Kentucky got whacked by Duke at the start of the year. Look at them now. Pretty good team. So your Final Four would be out of the East, we're going to have Duke. Out of the West, you're going to have Michigan. Out of the South, you're going to have Tennessee. And out of the Midwest, you're going to have Kentucky. So you've got 2 2s, a 2, and a 1. So I've only got one of the 1 seeds making it to the Final Four this year. So that's the tricky part of my bracket. A lot of folks look at chalk and think 1 seeds are going to make it automatically. I don't think this is one of those years. I think you have 2 seeds. As a matter of fact, I think Michigan State has a decent chance against Duke. I think they match up pretty well. I think the fact that Nick Ward is back for Michigan State, they've got a good big to give Duke some problems inside. You got to have somebody physical to go against Zion Williamson. So perhaps Michigan State could be the matchup problem that might derail Duke's path to the national championship. But I do think Duke will make it to the championship game against Michigan. They'll beat Michigan to get to the championship game. And then I like Tennessee over Kentucky in the other semifinal, essentially. You'll have Duke, Tennessee. Duke will win. That's the big tournament. So if you haven't gone online, go to NBC4I.com right now. You can sign up and play our bracket challenge. You can pick against me and all the other folks who work here at NBC4, but you'll be playing against people from across the country, and the grand prize is $1 million. That's okay. Plus, we got a bunch of local prizes you can win. Again, that's at NBC4I.com. Sign up and play and win. Hey, man, just that easy. Thanks for watching us tonight.